You'll remember back in 2014 and how well UKIP did at the EU elections. They topped the poll. Before the Brexit Party was launched, UKIP had 11%, or were at 11% in the polls. Now they're at 3%. So we're going to get stuck into all of these matters with UKIP leader Gerard Batten. We're on lbc.co.uk. We're streaming that live as well. Facebook and Twitter taking this. So join the debate if you will. 0345 6060 973. Get your questions into Gerard Batten. Gerard, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Andrew. I'm fine, thank you. And I was listening to your show before I came on. And somebody said they wanted some serious, ugly politicians. Well, here I am.
Hello, Gerard. Well, that's okay. Well, you said it yourself. Now, you're expecting over the next 20 or 25 minutes or so some fairly robust calls to come in.
Oh, fair questions, I hope.
Yeah, fair. Well, absolutely, and fair answers, no doubt. I've already talked about the pre-Brexit party standing in the polls around about 11%, now down at 2.5% or 3%. Let's get straight into the Brexit party. They have stolen your thunder, haven't they?
If you believe the polls, Andrew. We had a by-election in Wales, Newport West, about a month ago, which is not exactly our best territory, and we got 8.6%. We've had some local elections where up in Sunderland we were getting, I think, 41, 42% in a seat. We got 20-odd%. We were getting high percentages. I don't believe the 3%. I don't believe anything I read in the media anymore. I don't believe the polls are fair. I believe that the Brexit Party has been bigged up by the media precisely because the media think that it doesn't represent a real political threat, domestic political threat to the status quo after the European elections. And I'm afraid that I think most of our political system now, media, has been completely manipulated.
Well, if you don't believe, if you don't believe in the polls, you don't believe in them. But it's denying a reality that most people seem to think is happening, which is they're going to have a good Thursday and you're not.
Well, the only poll that really makes any difference is going to be the one on Thursday when the voters actually get to vote. We'll find out then. But no, I don't believe anything I read in the media, or I don't take it at face value anyway, and certainly not the polls. I think everything is manipulated. Brexit Party didn't exist about 2 months ago, more or less. And then suddenly it went from 0% up to about 27% in no time.
I thought you didn't believe in polls.
Well, that's what they're reporting. Do I believe what they're reporting? No, not particularly. Although,
but Nigel Farage is incredibly popular, isn't he?
It's funny, isn't it? He is in some quarters, he's not in others. He's a pretty Marmite type of politician. And yes, he's got the fabled charisma, and a lot of people like him and listen to what he says.
Are you jealous of him?
No.
His popularity, his party's popularity, he seems to. It doesn't seem to matter.
It's not about personal jealousies or whatever. I mean, obviously, if he'd have stayed with UKIP, he could have stayed with UKIP. Nobody was stopping him if he'd wanted to. He could have probably been UKIP leader for the last 12 months if he'd wanted to. I've been doing it now for about 14 months. If he'd have wanted to stay, he could have led UKIP. He didn't want to. He wanted to walk away, and he wanted what he's got now, what he always wanted, which is a one-man party. It's not a real political party. It doesn't have any members, doesn't have any structure, doesn't have a governing body, doesn't have a constitution that I know of. So he's got what he always wanted, which was an autocracy.
Have you been a better leader of UKIP than Nigel Farage?
I think I've been more collegiate, sometimes to my cost, try to involve other people in so that other people are doing things. And like you were talking about delegation earlier on in the previous section about politicians, I've tried to do that. I've certainly been successful in some areas. We have built the party up from collapse. We've now revived it financially and in terms of membership. And a lot of people in the party think I've done a good job, and a lot of people outside are complimentary as well.
Why do you say the Brexit Party and Nigel Farage is an autocracy? I mean, it's not a one-man band. I mean, Anne Widdecombe is now on board, Claire Fox is on board, Annunziata Rees-Mogg is on board, Ben Habib, Richard Tice is the chairman, Martin Daubney is another who's been on this programme. These are good names, and they're certainly more impressive names than Carl Benjamin.
It's not a real political party in the sense that it doesn't have the structure of a political party. It doesn't have members. It only has subscribers who send in money. They have no vote on who the leader is or anything else. There's no branches. There's no structure within the party. There isn't meant to be. Nigel will make all the decisions. So I believe all the money that they're accruing is going into a trust where there's one shareholder, and I believe it's him. So he controls the money and he controls the decision-making.
I don't know.
Well, that's what I've heard.
Who from? Media? The same media that you don't trust?
No, people on the inside of the Brexit Party.
Oh, OK.
Who I still talk to. Talk to me.
I'm talking to you.
No, they talk to me.
Oh, they talk to you. Is UKIP's decline permanent? And is that the fear, Gerard?
Well,
I mean,
the UKIP's been around now for, well, we started as the Anti-Federalist League in 1992, so 27 years really, when we changed our name in 93. We've been written off more times than Count Dracula. And I can remember after every election where we did well, it was a flash in the pan, it's not going to last. And we're still here 27 years later. So whoever the next leader might be, then I'm sure that UKIP has a future.
Is some of your decline down to the people? I mean, I've listed the people in the Brexit Party. We obviously have to talk about Carl Benjamin. We'll talk about Tommy Robinson and whether he's an advisor of yours in a minute. But surely you're going to be judged on the people that you associate with and the people you take on board. Carl Benjamin, the Sargon of Akkad, has been disgraceful, has he not?
No, he hasn't. And we have got 30,000 people in UKIP. We've got some fantastic people in UKIP.
No, I know, but we're talking about
of all
Carl
different
Benjamin.
kinds. I know, because
he's banned from Exeter Cathedral yesterday.
Yeah, look at what's happening in this country. Here's a man who is a commentator on the internet and whatever. He's a champion of free speech. He makes one joke which I don't approve of.
Wasn't a
and
joke.
Suddenly we have
Gerard,
this completely infantile reaction across the country from the media and people like Gloucester Cathedral who want to ban him. If you don't like what if Gloucester Cathedral didn't like his joke, why don't they have him on a platform and people can ask him questions about why he made it? Don't forget, he's been on the media. He was on the Victoria Derbyshire show, I think, on Thursday,
saw that.
and gave an explanation of why he said and why he said it.
It wasn't very convincing, was it?
I think
Look,
that
you cannot speculate.
You see, here we are. We're in the middle of an election that shouldn't be taking place about the fundamental future of our country. And all the media want to talk about is somebody making a stupid joke.
He's a candidate for your party, Gerard.
You have a stream of filth on all the mainstream channels in so-called comedy shows all the time, which is perfectly acceptable. Nobody bats an eyelid. A candidate in an election made a joke about 3 years ago and then followed it up with another stupid joke, which I didn't approve of. Suddenly that is the overriding factor in the whole election.
No, it's not. We've talked about a number of things. This is something that we have to address. Who you've got standing as potential MEP. Well, I have to ask you.
He's a candidate in the election.
He's a candidate in the election, and he has speculated about whether he would rape
in the
Jess Phillips.
In the context of an exchange with an MP who is herself not a stranger to controversy. She made a remark, for example, which a lot of people would find distasteful, which is that the 1,400 or so sexual assaults in Cologne in 2016 were comparable to a night out in Birmingham. A lot of people might be upset about that, but that's okay because she's a Labour MP and she can say things and other people can't.
How do you think it sits with particularly female voters? Well, when one of your potential MEPs says things like that, he's being investigated by the police. It's just an investigation.
We have lots of women in UKIP and in positions of authority. My chairman is a lady that I appointed. She doesn't have a problem with Carl Benjamin. Lots of other people don't have a problem with him because they've actually looked beyond the surface of the current media outrage. And
it's not just
understand it a bit more.
That's just hateful language. For me, me personally, Gerard, and we happen to have mics in front of us, I would be saying the same thing to you if I was outside now. That is a hateful thing to say. It's a vulgar thing to say. And at a time where emotions are running high and
so what
polarisation...
do you want me to do about it then?
Well, I think if you said, you know what, he really shouldn't have said that because it was stupid.
I've said that. I said it's a stupid joke. I've said that over and over again. I don't know. But he
should be suspended,
said first,
no?
No, he shouldn't be suspended because if you're going to suspend everybody from public life who's done something which somebody else doesn't approve of, there wouldn't be anybody left in politics and there probably wouldn't be many people left in journalism either, would there, Andrew?
Well, probably not, Gerard. That's a very good point. Well, let's move on to another controversial figure. Okay. And you must have been expecting me to ask you a question about your still advisor, Tommy Robinson?
Well, he hasn't been able to do much advising because his life has kind of been taken up with the death threats against him and the threats against his family and the fact that he's been put in prison on a completely trumped-up charge. And now he's going to be in court for the 8th time after the judge in the Old Bailey threw out the last case as being completely unsupportable. And I was there and I watched it. The judge wasn't having anything to do with it. Sent it up to the Attorney General, who has now decided that there's going to be another charge of causing anxiety to the men who had been convicted of child rape and were going back in the court. Well, it's a completely trumped-up charge, and the state wants him in prison because it thinks he might be murdered, and they want him murdered.
That's your take on it. You've called him at other times a good person to have on side. This is one court case. He is a convicted felon in this country for a number of different issues as well. Is he the right man to say that you're taking advice?
You've got convicted people, convicted felons
mortgage
in the House
fraud,
of Lords.
Hold on. Mortgage fraud, a passport offence, 2 other convictions. That's a proper criminal record he's got, isn't it?
Have you read his
No,
book?
I haven't,
No, well, read it, Andrew.
What's it called?
Because do you know what it's called? Enemy of the State, and he explains some of those things. Okay, now the passport one. He was going to America to talk to a conference, and they decided to ban him from going. So what did he do? For a joke, he went on his friend's passport and came back, and for that he gets a criminal conviction.
Well, yeah,
I know somebody who went on a trip to Brussels on one of the coach tours that have been arranged by me as an MEP. Came out of his house, realised he picked up his wife's passport, went all the way to Brussels and back on his wife's passport. Did he commit a criminal offence? No more than Tommy Robinson did.
Well, OK, he's a convicted.
But if the state decides it wants to persecute somebody, then it will.
All right. OK. Well, that's Tommy. You are still taking advice from him, though.
No, I'm not, because he's too busy doing other things.
He's got time to pick up the phone. Have you spoken to him on the phone?
I haven't spoken to him for about a month or 6 weeks.
OK.
When we went, Malcolm Lord Pearson in the House of Lords, when Tommy came in for a meeting. And that's the last time I've spoken to him. And of course, he is now running as a competitor to UKIP in the North West. Because he's running in his own right as an independent. All
right. Well, Gerard, should we take some calls now? 9:15 is the time. We've got 15 minutes with Gerard Batten, who's the UKIP.
I hope they're going to ask me about the European elections and the European Union.
Actually, do you know what? Have you got some headphones there? Should we just make sure we got those on there? All right, great. Robert is in Rochester, and he's our first caller. Hello, Robert.
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Gerard Batten is waiting for your question. Are you going to ask about the European elections?
Sort of. It's more about how is UKIP going to bring on new voices to offer a different direction, or possibly even a similar direction, but bring up more people that are within UKIP. The talent pool seems to be quite great when you look at places like Medway hitting 16.5% in the local elections. So is there going to be any infrastructure before Gerard goes to actually bring up more voices within?
Okay. Gerard?
Well, unlike the Brexit Party, we do have an infrastructure. We have a branch infrastructure, and what I'd like to see is a branch in every one of the 640 or 650 parliamentary constituencies in this country. So it's not my party. I lead a democratic party. If people within the party want to get involved in the politics, then they can do that by getting involved in a branch. Every branch needs a minimum of 3 officers. It needs activists. And that's the way people make their initial involvement. Then they can seek to be candidates, so they become a political voice in the party. And, of course, there's a National Executive Committee which governs the party. They can run for election to that. And if they really want a thankless job with no pay, they can run to become leader, can't they?
So you've had a nice time over the last 14 months, have you? Are you going to run again?
I'm not going to make that decision until after the 23rd. I stood up to do a 12-month term. I did a 3-month interim, which I was elected then on a 12-month term in order to save the party from oblivion, which I did. That should have come to an end in the middle of April. The National Executive Committee asked me to extend it to go beyond the local elections and beyond the Euro elections, which shouldn't have happened, but they did. And then I will make a decision after that. The National Executive Committee is meeting on the 2nd of June, where they will instigate the next leadership election, and I'll make my decision.
If you get no MEPs, and that is a possibility, having been the leading UK party in Brussels and Strasbourg in 2014, would you then go?
I'd have to, as I'm not going to make the decision now on air, I'm sorry, Andrew, but I will make that after the results. Let's see what the results are, and also how I feel about it.
Do you expect to get beaten up on in an electoral way on
No, I don't. UKIP has got... If I listen to the media, of course, I wouldn't come out.
I'm only asking about your expectations.
No, I'm not having a go at you, Andrew. I'm talking about most of the other newspapers and TV channels. If I watched those, I probably wouldn't come out the front door. But when I've been around the country in my coach, in our election bus recently, we've got loads of support from people coming up. I think there's lots of people out there who are going to go out and vote UKIP on the day, but aren't necessarily telling people. And of course, the media has no interest in helping UKIP by giving us a fair crack at the whip, because they want us to disappear, because almost all of the media are Remainers. They want to stay in the European Union, and they are not going to do any favours to the main Leave party, which is us.
OK. Jake's in Derby. Hello, Jake.
Hi, good morning.
Morning. Go ahead. Your question to Gerard Batten.
Okay, is UKIP a white supremacist stroke racist party?
Sorry, say that again.
Is UKIP a white supremacist stroke racist party?
No.
Why is your question put because you think they are, Jake?
Indeed.
Okay, Jake.
Given the fact that it's anti-Muslim, it's anti-black, it's anti-immigration, and has a lot in common with the likes of Salvini, Le Pen, and Gilders.
Okay, Jake, can I ask you a question? Give me one concrete example of how I or UKIP is a racist party.
Well, the fact of the matter that you use immigration to whip up public frenzy to the extent that the word immigration has been synonymous with
Do you think
the worst of the worst.
Do you think that there should be no immigration policy, that it should be uncontrolled and unlimited?
I'm not saying that. But
no, I'm not. I am saying it because that's what I've said throughout my time. I was immigration spokesman under Nigel Farage for about 5 years, and I wrote extensively on immigration.
So you were responsible for that bus, were you?
What
were you
bus?
responsible for that bus then?
What bus?
Breaking point. You might.
No, I didn't have anything to do with that because I wasn't consulted. I wasn't consulted on the campaign in 2014. I played no part in that. From 2009 to 2014, I was the immigration spokesman. I've written extensively on it. You can read it if you care to. All I've ever talked about is a controlled and limited immigration system, which is appropriate. And UKIP's immigration system is actually less racist than the one we've got now, because we actually say the same rules should be applied to everybody from wherever they come and shouldn't give preference to people just because they come from the European Union.
Jake, last word?
Well,
you haven't got a last word because you're on an untenable position.
I definitely do have a last word. I mean, the fact of the matter is that UKIP has a lot in common with people like Le Pen, Salvini, and Gilders. You're anti-immigration party.
We're not anti-immigration.
Of course you are.
No, we're not. We want controlled and limited immigration. No country in the world should have unlimited, uncontrolled immigration. That is an idiocy.
Your stance on immigration is very vulgar and perpetuates the myths.
And you haven't got a single fact to back up your arguments. Your arguments are based on prejudice.
There's a fact to back up my argument.
No, you haven't.
Jake,
I have.
I'm going to cut you off there, and I've got some facts here. I've got the UKIP manifesto wording here. This is on immigration. Under a security-based screening policy, we restrict any limited migration from Islamic countries to those people we can be sure as far as possible do not follow a literalist and extremist interpretation of Islam.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
Well, that would strike some people as being racist.
Why would it? What's the ideology got to do with people's race?
Under a security, so people. What is a literalist and extremist interpretation of Islam? What does that mean? You don't want Muslims coming to this country?
People who think it's okay to kill infidels, make war on infidels, strike terror into the hearts of infidels, crucify them, cut their heads off, all the things that are literally in the Quran. And if people think that's literally true,
how do you conduct a screening policy?
We would have, in the same way possibly that they're doing now in the ISIS camps, and where they're talking about people coming back into the UK, and perhaps on the same basis that the government has now actually barred Shima Begum from coming back. So you look carefully at what people are, what they do, and what they believe.
Are you an anti-Islam cult?
I am. Let me make this plain. I have never said or written anything about Muslims. I talk about the ideology, and I do not like the ideology of Islam. I think it is the most regressive, backward force on earth, and in that I agree with Winston Churchill.
And you have called it a death cult,
which it is.
And so you'll back that up, and you think
Absolutely,
that's going to appeal
100%.
to voters in this country?
I am not a politician who says things because I think they're going to curry favour with the mass of people who want to hear lies. I speak the truth. If people want the truth and they want to vote for it, that's up to them.
Mike Cookham, your deputy leader, you might have seen this interview that he did recently. He said your immigration policy is badly worded and it could be changed. Will it be? Is that badly worded?
Mike's area of expertise is fishing. If you ask him a question about that, he'll give you an expert answer.
But he is deputy leader, isn't he?
He is, and we're a Democratic Party, and he's entitled to a different point of view. And if he wants to run for the leadership after the 2nd of June, he's entitled to do so.
OK, so you think that wording is OK in terms of your immigration policy? That's OK
I do.
To screen Muslims. So you'll stand up for that.
Absolutely, 100%.
So limiting migration from Islamic countries, and at some point we'll know exactly what following a literalist or extremist interpretation of Islam actually means.
If you believe every word in the Quran, then you follow a literalist interpretation of it. If you think it's OK to make war on infidels, kill infidels, strike terror into the hearts of infidels, crucify them, behead them. I'm an infidel, by the way, and you probably are too. I take that a bit personally, don't you?
Would you be offended if there was a Muslim Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
If he took a literalist interpretation of his own religion, then I would be. And I know Muslims who will tell you that they don't actually believe it all. It's a load of codswallop. But they can't actually say that because their lives might be in danger. Now, if you had a Muslim Prime Minister like that, that wouldn't bother me in the slightest.
Are you offended that we've got a Muslim Home Secretary?
Why do you think I should be offended by that?
Are you? I'm just asking you if you are or you aren't. Are you offended that the Mayor of London is a Muslim man?
No, I'm not.
Are they? Do they not? Are they not?
I don't know. Maybe you should have them on the show and ask them. Do they think it's OK to strike terror into the hearts of infidels like yourself and me, and kill infidels and make war on them? I hope they would say no. It's not true.
I'm trying to work out what literalist means.
Literalist means taking every word of it literally.
Very subjective, isn't it? That's difficult to define,
it's
isn't
objective.
it? Entirely.
Well, ask them. Don't ask me. Ask them.
So if they have a literalist
read a bit of the Quran out, have them on the show, read the Quran out to them and say, do you believe this is literally true or not?
All right.
I can't answer that question, they can.
David is a first-time caller from Wimbledon. Hello, David. Gerard Batten has got his headphones on, waiting for your question.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Gerard. Sorry, a bit nervous. I don't want to get into the debate about whether or not these characters, Tommy Robinson and
Why don't we have some questions about the European election and the European Union?
No, but people are calling in to speak to the head of UKIP.
I said I don't want to get into the debate about that.
Good.
About whether these people are racist or whether the party's racist. My question is this. I was born in this country, but I'm an ethnic minority. I've been here for 40 years. I experience sort of casual racism on a daily basis. My question really is to Gerald as a party leader. What can you point me to in your manifesto, in things you've said, which would positive policies which would help me improve my life? So, the other day I was walking down the street and I was called called all sorts of names just for apparent reason.
Okay.
What are you doing?
What have UKIP got for David?
Well, our policies, if you read the manifesto, David, are for all...
I have read it, yes.
Right, good.
I have read it,
OK, I'm pleased about that. They are...
Can you point to one thing that you've said would actually positively improve my life?
Well, because we don't differentiate for ethnic minorities. We treat all British citizens in the same way under the law, and that's what we want in this country. So any policy, whether it be to do with economics or anything else, is about all people. If you're abused in the street, then the criminal law is being broken, and those people should be prosecuted if they're doing that.
Hold on a second, David. You finished, Joe?
Okay. I've heard what you said, but can you point me to one thing you've said or written down which portrays ethnic minorities or black people or Asian people in a positive way?
No, because I don't need to, because they are British citizens. I am married to an ethnic minority. I have mixed-race children. I don't have to go around parading that we're going to do something for this group or that group, because we treat all British citizens in the same way.
You didn't listen to my question. I said, can you point me to one thing you've written down or said which portrays these groups in a positive way?
Why would I do that? I treat all British citizens in the same way. Why would I write, oh, well, British people are OK, but this group are really wonderful or that group's marvellous? As far as I'm concerned, all British citizens are the same and must be treated in the same way.
All right. David, thank you. We must move on. I've got Ranjit waiting in the West Midlands. Hello, Ranjit.
Hello, good morning, Andrew. My question is, to be a leader of any particular political party, you've got to have some form of intelligence. So I'm not going to insult you, but why are you and your party in so much denial the matter of Jess Phillips? How would you like it if I said that about your wife and your children or your sister, Why are you, even when Andrew...
There we are, not a single question about the European Union.
Ranjit, let me just...
Yeah. I don't want to ask about the EU or whatever. I've had enough of that. I want to know, why does he feel that he's going to back up one of his colleagues that says something about another human being, about rape? Why does he feel that he's going to back him up? That's
so MEP candidate Carl Benjamin, we talked about it a minute ago. If people are just joining us, Ranjit, Carl Benjamin said that he wouldn't even rape her in relation to Jess Phillips MP.
Watch his explanation on the Victoria Derbyshire show.
Well, what on the Victoria Derbyshire show, he said that he was trying to be funny and save comedy. What's
so funny about it? Explain to me. What do you find funny?
I don't, because I said it's a joke I don't condone, I wouldn't make. He's made it, or he made it.
Hold on a second, Ranjit.
I didn't make the joke. I don't find jokes like that funny. I don't find any of the comedy on the mainstream TV funny anymore. I don't watch it. Most of it's just a torrent of abuse and filth, and it doesn't appeal to my sense of humour.
People are offended that he said something like that. Even yesterday, this Jack Renshaw got sent to prison for life for threatening the life of Labour MP.
That was a bit more serious than a joke, wasn't it?
Rosie. Well, people who've been sexually assaulted or raped would be pretty offended by this. The point is, Gerard, that he's let your party down, hasn't he? Shouldn't you have done something about it and shown stronger leadership?
First of all, the original remark that he made 3 years ago was in the context of an exchange, OK? And I didn't even regard it as a joke. I don't condone the remark itself. I think it was a wrong thing to do. Then he made another joke, which is I wouldn't even try to defend. I didn't think it was funny, but he has another identity as a comedian and a social commentator, and he made that in the course of a video or an act, some kind of act that he was doing. Now, as I said to you, I don't condone it. He's explained it. Other people have said they're not offended by it. Jess Phillips herself is not a stranger to controversy. And this whole thing arose because she barred some kind of debate in Parliament on male suicide, which Carl Benjamin feels very strongly about because his uncle committed suicide. Right. And that's the context. Okay. And how many times have we got to go and have the same ground? There's a European election which shouldn't be happening.
And we don't have a single call. I have to be honest with you. We don't have a single call. Have you got a screen in front of you? We don't have a single call.
No, I haven't got a screen.
No. Well, we don't have a single call, I can assure you, on the European elections, which take place on Thursday.
Then this is what people should be concerned about.
And you are UKIP. Well, why haven't you managed to gain their attention to that
point? Probably because every time I go on the media, they talk about things which are not important like this and rake it up because they don't want us talking about the European elections, which shouldn't be taking place.
Your relationship with Tommy Robinson's important. The relationship of your party, your immigration policy is important. We've talked about a lot of different things. And if people don't call up and say, I want to know about the European elections, then we can't. I mean, here's another one. Ben is in Haringey. Ben, go ahead and ask your question, Ben.
Yes, I want to know. I'm less concerned about the Brexit because if it happens, it happens. We deal with it. The concern I mainly have is with if extreme right-wingers take over, not yourself, but extreme right-wingers in the Conservative Party take over, then the National Health Service is in danger. And Nigel Farage has already said on many occasions he wants an insurance-based system. What is your policy?
Well, I don't think the Conservatives are right-wingers. I think most of them are socialists anyway. You have plenty of socialists in this country, all in different parties. Our policy is to preserve the NHS as it is. That's what it says in the manifesto. We're not interested in changing it. Obviously, we want to improve it and to make it more effective and work better. But we have no plans for changing the way it's financed.
Okay.
Well, that's good. I like that.
Thank you,
Ben. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. 9:31 is the time. Gerard, is there anything else that you wanted to say before?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the European elections. Any chance of that, Andrew? Do you think?
Well, if people don't call in and ask, they're so taken by your brand of politics and the far right nature of them. They get fascinated by that.
Please don't call me far right.
Are you not far right?
No, I'm not far right. And I'm sick to death of this.
You just called the Conservative Party socialist.
Well, they are in many of their policies, but being the opposite of that doesn't make you far right. I run a Democratic Party. I have spent the last 27 years of my life trying to restore democratic rule, or being part of the process for restoring democratic government to this country by leaving the European Union, so that we run under our own laws, by our own government, in our own parliament by our own elected MEPs. My father spent 6 years in the Second World War fighting real right-wing people, the real fascists, the Nazis. I'm sick to death of people equating patriotism and wanting your country run by your own elected politicians for the benefit of your own systems as being right-wing. I think people really need to have a serious think about that.
Haven't you had enough of all this?
I quite enjoy a bit of a set too, Andrew. So I must admit, and I'm not, every time I come on here and get attacked, we put more members on. When I came on with Matt Fry, who's absolutely left-wing biased, politically correct politician who happens to be in the media, I got 500 new members over that weekend. So I hope all the people out there who've listened to me...
How many members are there now?
About 30,000.
About 30,000. And Brexit Party, how many have they got?
Well, they don't have members, Andrew.
They don't have members. How many supporters do you think they've got?
I don't know, because they're giving all kinds of figures, and I know Nigel well enough to know that he bigs things up when it suits his purpose.
All right. How was it coming in today? Did you have a nice time?
It was very quiet, actually. The trains weren't working, as usual, so I had to get a cab to the tube station.
To the studio. 9:30.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was taking you literally.
No.
It was a literalist interpretation of what you said.
A literalist and interpretation, which we could go back on, but we won't. Thank you for coming in and for putting your case. European elections on Thursday, and that is Gerard Batten.